Now, and we're moving on to our latest segment on Sunday edition, and it's a podcast on clean air. The air you breathe is very important. Yeah. So on the Clean Air Ghana podcast, every Sunday here on Sunday edition, we're going to bring you a podcast on Sunday edition. Yeah, and we're starting today, episode 1. Before now, many journalists in Ghana had barely scratched the surface of air pollution. But through a new training, they are learning how to report on the air we breathe. And its hidden dangers in this first episode of the Clean Air Ghana podcast, hosted by Michael Ashali. You hear from the experts who led the training and the fellows who are stepping up to tell Ghana's clean air story. So listen to the first episode of the Clean Air Ghana podcast here on Sunday edition.
All right, before we begin today's episode, here's a quick riddle for you. I am all around you, but you can't always see me. I can shorten lives, cost billions, and yet most people don't talk about me. What am I? Now, if you guessed air pollution, you are right. And that's exactly what we are talking about in this new season of Clean Air Reports Ghana on Joy FM. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of this season of Clean Air Reports Ghana on Joy FM. I am host Michael Ashali, and it's great to have you with us. This season, we are following the journey of journalists from across Ghana who are part of the second cohort of Fellows on Clean Air Reporting. It's a groundbreaking program that's helping reporters bring science, data, and powerful storytelling together so that air pollution is no longer invisible or ignored. Now, why does this matter? Well, across Ghana, air pollution is often called a silent killer. Nearly 30,000 people die prematurely every year from exposure to polluted air. That's about 82 people every single day. And yet, for most of us, it remains something we hardly see, hear, or talk about. This fellowship is changing that, and in today's episode, we take you inside their very first training session. So let's talk about why clean air reporting really matters. When we hear air pollution, many of us think about smoke from cars or maybe dust on the streets. But the truth is, it's much more than that. It's tiny particles, invisible to the eye, that can take years of your life, put pressure on your health systems, and even affect our food and water. That's why this training was designed. It's about helping journalists connect the dots. How to read and understand air quality data, how to trace sources of pollution from traffic to industry to household cooking, and most importantly, how to link those findings to the everyday struggles of communities. It's really about making the invisible visible. At the training, the fellows didn't just sit through lectures. They heard directly from some of Ghana's leading voices on clean air. Researchers, doctors, and policy makers, each offering a unique perspective. First up was Dr. John Akom Mensah from the School of Public Health. He shared sobering numbers about the health and economic toll of air pollution in Ghana.
This is the electronic waste recycling sites. So the soil at Abobloshi is about the 10th or so most polluted soil on earth. Don't know whether you've heard about that. We are talking about industries, vehicular exhausts. So all the traffic we sit in, all the black smoke that trucks bellow and we inhale. So all trucks don't have what we call catalytic converters. So in modern cars, you have catalytic converters, which, and if you are aware to, the moment you take your car to a mechanic, they steal it. Air pollution is presence of harmful substances in the Earth's atmosphere, and these substances can be solid particles, liquid droplets, or gases, and they can cause damage to humans, other living organisms, and the environment. And there are so many sources, varied sources of air pollution. So we have natural ones like volcanoes, that's natural, bushfires. And we humans, we generate most of these pollutants through our activities. So through industries like the one I showed you, vehicular exhaust has become very big and important. So this is 2020 WHO. 28,000 premature deaths are recorded every year as a result of air pollution in Ghana. The annual average concentration of particulate matter, PM2.5 pollution in Ghana, was 7 times higher than WHO in 2021. It can impact on the brain and mind. Cognition. Always children under 5 are very vulnerable. And you can talk about vulnerable groups. Older people, pregnant women, children under 5, they are vulnerable to most things because everything is now developing. Immune system, even the respiratory system, everything is maturing. So cognitive decline, we have stroke risk. So similar to heart attacks, air pollution can increase the risk of ischemic and hemorrhagic strokes, neurodevelopmental issues, and mental health issues.
Then we heard from Desmond Appiah, the lead of the Clean Air Fund in Ghana. He spoke about how air quality affects not just health, but also productivity and development.
Clean Air Fund was launched in 2019, and our mission was very simple. I think the name says it, clean air. We are not interested in other things. It's clean air. Very straightforward. What is our mission? We say equity. We want a world where everyone can breathe clean air. Now, people in Ebri, all the rich people in Accra are moving to Ebri because it's cooler. Everybody feels that the air is cleaner. We want to support decision makers. And how do we do that? We give them the information, the data, the research, all those things which will make it easier for them to make the decisions that we think are helpful. We did an intervention at Osu Salem School. 275 cars have been taken off that stretch of the road. The headmaster says that he is sure very soon more children would like to come to the school because of the playground.
Also at the training was Professor Kofi Amega from the University of Cape Coast, who reminded everyone that air pollution is not just an environmental issue. He emphasized the challenge of limited data and how journalists can help bridge that gap.
You see, air pollution is the leading environmental health risk factor for health. And if you're dietary risk factors, dietary exposures, high fat intake, high sodium intake, is the risk marker for hypertension and most of the cardiovascular disease. But now air pollution is overtaking those things. So we've identified some hotspots. Those locations that we have highlighted, even without data, nobody can tell me that the Madina Zongo Junction is not one of the most polluted enclaves in Accra. Agbobloshi, who can convince me that Agbobloshi is not? 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you have all these diesel trucks, you have e-waste burning ongoing, so you see, the data is speaking to this. Peak hours are the rush hours, early morning, and then also late afternoon. So those are the peak hours when everybody is rushing to work and then everybody is coming back home. Yeah, Makola was one. And then also school junctions. We've been able to develop a mobile application and it will give you the air quality levels at the location that you find yourself in. Why do we need air quality data in real time? If you have a daughter who is suffering from asthma, it's very critical that you know the air quality levels in the space where she will interface with, whether going to school, going to church, or being at home.
On the policy side, Alex Johnson from the Accra Metropolitan Assembly's Department of Transport highlighted the role of traffic emissions and how smarter planning can make a real difference.
If you checked the number of people who drove by car or travel by car in that chart were about, I think, 8%. Today, car ownership by the population is about 10%. And I keep talking about the social injustice. For all the 2,700 kilometer length of paved network, it's only supposed to serve physically people who drive. Because if you check the arrangement of the corridors, there are no provisions for public transport vehicles to have priority, but cars are the major polluters in the ecosystem. But you see, if you drive your car, the amount of pollution that is coming out of your vehicle, you are sitting in that car alone. Can you imagine the congestion we are causing, and the amount of solution that we are emitting. By the moment we all leave our cars and we sit in a bus, the level of pollution from each of those 20 vehicles automatically is removed from the network.
Finally, we heard from Dr. Sandra Kwatin Owusu, a pediatric pulmonologist. She brought it home by sharing the heartbreaking reality of how air pollution affects children.
We have statistics. So generally in Africa, the prediction is that 10%. So if you find any 100 children, 10 of them would, adolescents, 10 of them would have asthma. But what we found was 16% of the children that we screened positive for asthma. So in Kumasi, adolescents 12 to 14 years, 16% of them had asthma. So what is the conclusion? Air pollution is a reality in Ghana. We know that we find high levels of pollution in school, for the schools that have dust all over. And then for some of these schools, we also find that a lot of the children report asthma symptoms. But these are cross-sectional studies. These are not longitudinal studies. Burning refuse close to schools is highly unacceptable. And we have appealed to some of the local authorities. Do not burn refuse when the children are in school. That's the amount of smoke that comes out is so much.
You've heard from the experts. Those voices set the stage for the fellowship, connecting science, policy, and lived experiences. But what about the journalists themselves? We caught up with some of the fellows in this second cohort to hear their first impressions of the training and what they are taking away from it.
Well, it's been an interesting experience, really, joining this fellowship. All along, air pollution to me was limited to the dust and the exhaust, I see from cars. And for someone who has been driving for a while, now hear me out. I was quite surprised that a very important element in cars, as a result of their absence, leads to a huge problem in emission as regards air pollution, and that is a catalytic converter. That blew my mind.
My name is Jennifer Ambule and I'm a reporter with the Chronicle newspaper. This was a game changer for me because even though I report on air pollution, I've never been to any training of that sort. I got to know that air pollution is linked to reduced sperm quality, hormones, disruption and all that. So for me, this training was really what I needed, and I know it's going to impact my reportage.
Joyce Jeche is my name, and I work at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. My take-home points after the 3-day training was the fact that WHO report indicated in 2022 that 99% of the global population were exposed to unsafe air that year. So it's really opened my eyes to so many things that going forward I'll pursue to make my work interesting.
I was really concerned about the fact that no place is safe anymore. There were new knowledge shared, new things that I didn't know. Some of them were things I did not even have time to learn about them. It was a great experience, and I know very well that I'm going to change my way of telling stories.
Those are powerful voices, aren't they? You can really hear the passion and the potential of this fellowship. Of course, this journey won't be without challenges. Access to reliable air quality data is still limited. Many journalists don't always have the technical skills to analyze the numbers. And even when the stories are told, policymakers don't always respond with the urgency they should. That's exactly why this fellowship exists, to build a network of reporters who can support one another and keep the conversation alive. As one facilitator put it so well, clean air isn't just a science problem, it's a storytelling challenge. Air might be invisible, but its impact is not. And as you have heard today, the second cohort of Clean Air Fellows is stepping up to make sure it becomes a headline issue. We'll be following them throughout this season of Clean Air Report Ghana on Joy FM and bringing you their stories right here. I am host Michael Ashali, and this has been episode 1 of the Clean Air Report Ghana on Joy FM. Thank you for listening, and remember, every breath counts.
And also remember, this is going to be on Sunday edition every Sunday at 6:40 p.m. And you just hear the Clean Air Report Ghana. And that's the podcast, actually. You had some journalists there sharing their experiences, their learnings, and insightful conversations and some important takeaways that they had from that training.